Daniel chapter 4 and verse 17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men and giveth it to whomsoever he will and setteth up over it the bases of men. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakakadash, for blessing me with the spirit to do this lesson. In this video, I'm going to show you, it gives a little history on these devils, man. Preferably Esau, Edom, man. Right? This is why I entitled this, The Wicked is a Vile and Disgusting Nation, man. These people are evil, man. These people are wicked. These people are vile. And they're base, meaning the lowest of the low, man. Right? So the Lord said in Daniel 4:17, it said that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men and giveth it to whomsoever he will, right? And he will give it to the, let's get it. It says to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men and giveth it to whomsoever he will and setteth up over it the bases of men. So the Lord has given, right, the rulership to the bases of men, meaning the lowest of the low. Let's get Job chapter 9, verse 24. It says, the earth is given unto the hand of the wicked. And these people that you're going to see here, this is the nation that the Lord has ruling over us, man. Right? Which is the wicked. It says, the earth is given unto the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he, man? So the faces that was covered was the faces, first and foremost, of our Lord, our King, Yahushua, the Most High, right? Yahweh, right? Everybody's a so-called white person, man. Everybody's a so-called white man or woman throughout history. Everybody, right? So that's how he covered the faces. So let's play this. Yahweh Shem Yahushua willing, the elect be edified. I gotta warn you, man. It's probably some of y'all gonna be disgusted with what y'all see, but you know, this is not for any monetary gain, man. Right? This is strictly for educational purposes only. So you see the copyright disclaimer, which they might take it down, but whatever. We'll see.
Imagine this. You wake up one morning, skip a shower for just 2 days, and already you feel sticky, smelly, uncomfortable in your own skin. Now imagine skipping not 2 days, not even 2 weeks, but 8 whole months, on purpose. That's exactly what Queen Isabella of Castile did. She wore her filth like a badge of honor, and here's the disturbing truth. She wasn't even the dirtiest one. We're taught to imagine medieval royalty as glowing figures in sparkling gowns, gliding through candlelit halls that smell of roses. Painters captured them looking pure, elegant, untouchable. But those portraits lied. Behind the jewels and gowns was something far darker. The truth is, the average peasant, washing in a muddy river once a week, was far cleaner than most queens. The servant scrubbing the palace floors had fresher skin than the woman wearing a crown. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what life really smelled like under those layers of silk, what was writhing inside those powdered wigs, why queens painted their teeth black on purpose, why one beauty treatment required lying in a tub of blood while maggots fed on the grease in her hair. By the end of this, you'll understand that royal treatment in the medieval world often meant rotting flesh, parasites, and faces literally falling apart. So let's start with something as simple as a queen waking up in the morning. When sugar arrived in Europe in the 1500s, it was more expensive than gold. Only the royal elite could taste it. Queen Elizabeth I couldn't get enough. She ate sugared violets for breakfast, candied ginger between meals, and a treat called marchpane, which was basically pure sugar paste, for dessert. Here's what that diet did to her. By 40, her teeth were stained brown. By 50, they were black. By 60, many had rotted out. Ambassadors wrote that when she opened her mouth to speak, the stench was so unbearable they had to stand several feet away. A German visitor described it bluntly in 1597. He said her breath reeked like a rotting horse. But the strangest part? It became fashion. Court ladies saw her black teeth and thought, that's the look of wealth. So they painted their own teeth black to copy her decay. Some smeared soot. Others mixed honey with charcoal, which actually sped up their tooth rot. Imagine a glittering ball at Windsor Castle, noblemen and women laughing, dancing, smiling, and every grin revealing rows of blackened teeth, dripping breath like open graves. An Italian ambassador summed it up best. The English court smells like a graveyard covered in roses. Perfume wasn't a luxury there. It was survival, because tooth rot wasn't the only odor filling those gilded halls. Let's talk about what nobody likes to discuss. What royal women did during their periods. Forget sterile pads or cotton. Medieval queens used rags, strips of old cloth, reused over and over. These menstrual cloths were rinsed in cold water, hung up to dry, and then placed back on the body month after month, year after year. But here's where it turns stomach churning. Those rags were often washed in urine. Stale urine was medieval Europe's laundry detergent. Collected in chamber pots and left until it turned into ammonia, it was used to scrub clothing. So the same fabric pressed against a queen's most sensitive areas had been steeped in human piss. One German princess wrote in her diary in 1456 about the stench in the court hall when several noblewomen were menstruating at once.
And you hear this, man. This is a nation that is purely disgusting, man. But yet they will have the whole world, and the whole world is just you got a lot of people waking up to it now, but they had the whole world fooled into thinking that the so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans were the most disgusting, vile people on the earth, man. And what you're seeing is the history of these devils, man. And this is just one story. There are hundreds, man. The scriptures tell you that they used to walk on all fours and runt and grunt and eat out of their grandmother's skulls, and the hair on their head on their bodies was so thick that it would have all types of bugs, and the smell would be unbearable, and they didn't know how to wash up, and they were so disgusting that rats would follow them around, and these people are just disgusting, man, hands down, right? And this is the nation that the Lord has ruling over us, man. This should get you upset.
Described how the Duke ordered all windows thrown open in the dead of winter because the smell was unbearable. Some women tried alternatives. They stuffed moss into little pouches. Ironically, sphagnum moss actually does kill bacteria, but they didn't know that. They just knew it soaked up blood. And of course, the moss wasn't properly cleaned. It sat damp, rotting, used for months until it grew its own colonies of bacteria. And remember, women didn't bathe during their periods either. Doctors warned that immersing a menstruating woman in water might block her flow and kill her. So every month, queens added another thick layer of filth to their already unwashed bodies. And on those bodies lived entire kingdoms of crawling things. Every single royal woman in Europe had lice. Fleas and lice thrived. The fat went rancid, drawing maggots. Queen Christina of Sweden once removed her wig during a council meeting, and witnesses saw a river of lice spill down her scalp.
Yeah, look at that, man. Ew. Lice is very hard to get out of your hair, man. They probably had lice, in other parts. I ain't gonna say, but that's how disgusting and filthy these people are, man. Right? This is how disgusting and filthy and vile these people are, man. This is Psalms chapter 12 and verse 8. It says, the wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted, man. And these people are exalted, right? In the movies throughout history, they painted a whole picture that they were the cleanest, the greatest warriors, the strongest men, right? They exalted themselves, but it tells you the wicked walk on every side. This place is wicked, man. Right? This place is getting more and more wicked daily. Why? Because the vilest men are exalted, man.
He laughed and called them subjects who never abandoned their queen. Wigs were rarely cleaned. Instead, they were dusted with powder made of flour mixed with lead. So on top of crawling insects and rotting fat, these women inhaled clouds of poison. One French duchess leaned forward at dinner, and maggots tumbled from her wig onto her plate. She calmly brushed them aside and continued eating. At night, wigs were set on stands, where rats came to gnaw on the fat and flour. In the morning, they were powdered again and placed back on infected, sore-covered scalps. The outer gowns, worth more than a peasant's house, were almost never cleaned. Instead, they were smoked over fires with herbs to mask the stench. Some gowns rotted right off women's bodies as the fabric decomposed. Others were laced with poison by enemies, soaked in arsenic or mercury that slowly seeped into the skin of the unsuspecting wearer.
Nasty, man. They used to wear their clothes till they pretty much melted on them. Right? But everybody wants the so-called white woman, right? Jake, he loves the so-called white woman, man. Right? These women are fucking disgusting, man. And even now, you hear them talking, you interview them. Some of them say they don't wash up for days. Some say they don't use washcloths. Right? These people are the greatest deceivers on the planet, man. Right? They deceived everybody into thinking that there's something that they're not. This is how they really are. What you're seeing on the screen, this is how they really are, man. And this is where they're going. Because Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to put them back in their natural state. Scripture said they're going to be a vagabond. Right? Let me get some. This is Job 30 and verse 1. It says, but now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I will not have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. So Job wouldn't even have these people around his dogs, man. And you look out when you're out and you see these Edomites, these devils with these dogs, man. They carrying them around. They bathe with them. They sleep with them. They literally sleep with them, right? These people are fucking disgusting, man. Right? So you can't even trust these people around your animals. When I used to have my dog, every time I took my dog out, because I had a dog that is not really seen around here. I had a Akita, right? It's a beautiful dog, man. But every time I would take him out, you'll have so-called white people, especially so-called white women, in awe. They want to touch it, right? They will want to rub on it. They will want to. They'll try to grab it by his face, and I would have to tell them, "Nah, get away from my dog, man. I don't want you touching my dog." Right? And they would get upset. They would get upset, man. So it says, verse 2, yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, and whom old age was perished. For want and famine, they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness, and former time desolate and waste. Right? Because these people, this is how they are, man. They're always out, like they're great hunters, like the scriptures say. Right? You see them, you see videos with them. They out in the woods and off the grid, so to speak. It says, who cut up mallows in the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief. So when they were chased, they were chased out of during the Byzantine Empire, right? The Moors, as they would say, but they were Israelites. Chased them out of Europe, right? Out of into the caves, right? And they lived out there, man. It says to dwell in the clefts of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks. That's where they dwelt at, man. Among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. So these people were, walking around naked and hairy as shit, smelling, unbelievably stink, right? Had lice, maggots, as you just heard in this video. It says, among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth, man. And vile means disgusting. Right? These people were disgusting, and they still are disgusting, man. Let's go.
Became so common that queens hired dress testers, servants forced to wear new gowns first to see if they died. And then there were the holy women who embraced filth as devotion. Queen Isabella of Castile refused to change her underwear during the siege of Granada. For 8 months, her garments fused with her skin until they had to be cut off. She considered it a holy triumph. Saint Elizabeth of Hungary slept in her own waste. Saint Margaret of Hungary praised her lice as divine blessings. This wasn't insanity. It was celebrated as piety. And then came the Blood Countess, Elizabeth Bathory of Hungary. Legend says she murdered 600 girls and bathed in their blood to stay young. Imagine the reality. Human blood clots within minutes, turns brown, stinks of rot. Servants testified that they scraped her skin clean of congealed gore while the stench of rotting blood made them vomit. Picture a queen sitting every morning while servants combed through her hair for hours, picking out lice and eggs, gathering them on a special cloth before burning it. Queen Isabeau of Bavaria once suffered such a massive infestation that her hair had to be cut off. Her physician gave up counting after finding more than 1,000 lice in just one.
And when these people came over to the Native Americans, right, off the ship, they looked at weird to the Native Americans, right? They some of them, they came over there in dresses. They looked and smelled disgusting, right? They didn't know how to do a damn thing. They were just violent. The Native Americans found that out later on when they entrusted in them, when they let their guard down, But hey, man, this is the true nature of Edom. True nature, man.
Section of her scalp. But here's what's shocking. Many believed lice weren't pests at all, but holy gifts. Some thought they spontaneously appeared on dirty skin. Saint Margaret of Hungary refused to wash, letting lice crawl over her face as she prayed. Each bite, she said, was a blessing from God, and the fleas, even worse. Palaces were infested. The rush mats covering the floors were never cleaned, and fleas swarmed in them. At Hampton Court, witnesses said the floors actually moved with jumping fleas. Noble women wore flea traps under their dresses, little tubes filled with honey or blood, to lure the fleas away. Some even had flea dogs, little pets whose only purpose was to attract the insects away from their mistress's skin. But body lice were the worst of all. They lived in the seams of clothing and came out only to feed. Since gowns were almost never washed, lice colonies became permanent residents. When archaeologists opened the tomb of Queen Isabella of Aragon, her burial gown was still filled with dormant lice eggs 500 years later, and when queens fell sick, the cures were sometimes more revolting than the illnesses themselves. A headache? Doctors smeared fresh bird droppings onto the forehead. Skin disease? Bathe in the urine of virgin boys, collected each morning as a royal duty. But the worst treatments were for women's health. Queen Catherine of Aragon desperately wanted a son. Her doctors made her sit over burning goat dung for hours so the smoke could wake up her womb. The fumes scorched her most intimate parts. Other women were told to insert pessaries made of crocodile dung mixed with honey inside their bodies. These were not peasant remedies. These were royal prescriptions by Europe's fine.
Hey, man. Oh, man, I got nothing else to say, man. This is my last one. We're going to shut it down. This is the Song of Three Holy Children, verse 8. It says, wherefore, all that thou hast brought upon us, meaning the Israelites, and everything that thou hast done to us, thou hast done in true judgment. And thou didst deliver us into the hands of lawless enemies, most hateful forsakers of the Most High, and to the unjust king, and the most wicked in all the earth, man. And these people are the most wicked, disgusting, and vile people on the earth, man. And you don't get no worse than this. So don't believe the hype on these devils, man. These devils are very disgusting. This is why the chief, tribe of Edom, the small hats, this is why they have to hire the northern kingdom to clean their houses, man. Because if they didn't, then their houses would be disgusting, man. You ever seen that TV show Hoarders? Most of those be Edomites, man. That be hoarding and having rats and roaches and feces all around the house, dead cats and all that, man. So these people haven't changed. These people are the worst people on the planet, man. And the Lord is exposing them, man. So I'm gonna leave it there. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua willing, the elect was other Father. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rakakadash, for blessing me with the Spirit to do this lesson. To the next lesson. Shalom.